Hey everybody, welcome to the Morning Devo with Bo-O. It is 8 o'clock in the morning, so it's a little earlier than, what I am used to doing the Devos in. So anyway, welcome. This is going to be Jeremiah chapter 26 today, and you could always check out the archives of the devotions at my YouTube channel. Just go to Bo Willette. And it is a French name, a lot of vowels, but if you put in that name in the YouTube search bar, you'll come up with all the different videos I've done, the different books of the Bible. I tend to just like to go through the Bible and just read it kind of book by book kind of thing. I find it's a lot easier to understand kind of the flow in history. You know, the Bible is a book of history. It's a collection of books, I should say, of history. And a lot of our questions can get answered if we just kind of take it, book by book and just go through it. During this time, it's around, 600 or 550 years before the time of Jesus. And this prophet Jeremiah is a prophet of Israel, of the southern area of the country of Israel, really prophesying specifically to Jerusalem, its capital, and the people that are around that region. And we can see that it's not a very popular message, and it's one that many people don't want to hear. They'd rather hear something much more to their liking. So they kind of click off Jeremiah and they kind of put on, the video that they want to hear. And this is something that we get an idea into human behavior in that idea that we see in the book. And that humans tend to heap up for themselves teachers that we want to hear. And maybe that's what we do just growing up too, is, when it comes to our peer groups, our subcultures, that maybe what we're doing is we're trying to find people that agree with our concepts of what we think is particular about right and wrong things. And, it might be something for you to think about, Anyway, we see that with Jeremiah. A lot of people don't want to hang out with him because he's kind of negative. He's actually sharing that God is going to judge him. And so people say, man, I'd rather hang out with this crew. They're much more positive people. So we definitely can relate to the Bible. And the Bible really sheds a lot of insight into humans. And it really makes sense. When we look at the world, this is what we see. We don't, and when we look at the Bible, we see a realness to it. It's not some fairy tale. It's not something that's pulled out of the reality, but it's actually quite within it. So we're in 26 right now, and it says, "This message came to Jeremiah from the Lord early in the reign of Jehoiakim, son of Josiah, king of Judah. This is what the Lord says: Stand in the courtyard in front of the temples of the Lord and make an announcement to the people who have come there to worship from all over Judah." So this is the southern area of Israel. It says, "Give them my entire message, include every word. Perhaps they will listen and turn from their evil ways, and then I will change my mind about the disaster I am ready to pour out on them because of their sins." So we see something very clear in this message, and that is humans are sinners. We sin, we turn away. And do I see that today? Yeah. Not just turning away from God, but we turn away from all kinds of things. We turn away from friends, people that love you, people that are invested in you. We tend to turn away from all kinds of people. It's not just God. And then we go to a different group. And we, for some reason, whatever the reasons are, we are a part of their lives now. This is how human beings work. And it says here that, we turn from God, and we're kind of, now potentially going to get judged by God. And that, of course, doesn't settle right in a lot of our hearts, right? We go, man, how can God do that? Da, da, da. And this is no different from what they said back then. They had those same exact responses, right? I don't believe in God. I don't believe that God of judgment. I feel much freer now that I'm away from this, that kind of idea. It doesn't mean that it's not true. It's just that's what we do. And so it gives us a good assessment of just what we're like. And it says, say to them, this is what the Lord says, if you will not listen to me and obey my word I have given you, and if you will not listen to my servants, the prophets, okay, so I've given you my word. This is why we have a written word. It is if you will, a evidence of God. God has something in writing, so to speak, to be evidence against us. So when we say, oh, there's no God, well, there's an evidence trail, if you will, of the deity. And he says, if you will not pay attention to that, which a lot of us won't growing up, we won't pay attention to the Bible. Don't even want to touch it. Don't even want to be near it, right? Scared to death of it, right? Have our own presuppositions about it. And he says, and you won't listen to my prophets, those that I've sent to you as a nation. Now, specifically, this is to Israel, to the southern tribes. It says then, and it says, for I sent them again and again to warn you, and you would not listen to them. Hey, does that sound like human behavior, right? Being, again and again and still not getting it? That sounds very much like us. And it says, then I will destroy this temple as I destroyed Shiloh, the place where the tabernacle once was located. And I will make Jerusalem an object of cursing in every nation on the earth. Okay. So it sounds like, the judgment's going to be that, the temple that they find so awesome and so beautiful and so amazing and so all that is going to be destroyed. In a sense, their prize, their boast. We tend to boast in things that we have and boast in things that we build. The industrial age, the technological age. Haven't you ever talked to someone, or haven't you ever said, man, we're way better off today than we were back then? Look at what we've built, right? Look at what we have. Look at how our technology is developed, those kind of things. And we tend to, boast in those things. We think they're awesome. And God says through Jeremiah, hey, it's going to be taken away. All that building and all that pride you have in the temple is going to be removed. And then what? What's your boast going to be in then? So the priests and prophets and all the people listened to Jeremiah. So these are the religious leaders listening to Jeremiah as he spoke in front of the Lord's temple. Jesus spoke in front of the Lord's temple too in his day. But when Jeremiah had finished this message, saying everything the Lord had told him to say, the priest and prophets and all the people of the temple mobbed him. Kill him, they shouted. What right do you have to prophesy in the Lord's name that this temple will be destroyed like Shiloh? What do you mean, saying that Jerusalem will be destroyed and left with no inhabitants? And all the people threatened him and stood in front of the temple. Now, this is very similar to Jesus' arrest in his trial. And the way people shouted at him, hey, this guy said he was going to destroy the temple would be destroyed. All this jazz like that. And of course, Jesus had mobs of people that wanted to kill him. And certainly the upper-ups, the elites, ended up doing that through a corrupt court system, a corrupt government, things like that. Very much just like what we see today and throughout history. Nothing new under the sun at all. So Jeremiah faces this as well. And what a scary thing. Jeremiah has already cried out with God, I don't want to die early. I don't want to die young. And here he is, kind of vulnerable, with this mob coming at him. Jeremiah has cried out to God that, God, why don't you protect me? Why aren't you there for me? And there's times in our lives where we wonder, where's God when it seems like he's not coming through? And so Jeremiah's life's on the line. the book that I'm reading right now into just the commoner's hand, to let people just read it, so that they didn't have to have this hegemony, this right power structure, religious power structure, to be the ones that teach you, right? It could just be you that pick up the Bible and just read it and go, oh, that's not what it says. No, like it doesn't say that, and so the common person can be educated on the Bible. Jeremiah is just bringing a truth to the people, and those people don't like it. The religious leaders don't like it. And when religious leaders get mad, man, it can get ugly quick. That's why in the New Testament when it talks to leadership in what we know as the pastoral epistles, 1 Timothy, 2 Timothy, and Titus, you should read them and see what the leaders, what pastors, how our behavior should be. We should be gentle with all, able to instruct, loving, not quarreling with words. It's a real admonishment to, our attitudes as leaders. But here you see the leadership just go right at Jeremiah. And it says, when the officials of Judah heard what was happening, they rushed over from the palace and sat down at the new gate. So here comes the police, right? And they go to hold court. The priests and prophets presented their accusations to the officials and the people. This man should die, they said. You have heard with your own ears what a traitor he is, for he has prophesied against this city. Now, what I find fascinating is this is very similar to the trial of Jesus, the latter days of Jesus on before his crucifixion, and the way people acted, the way the courts acted, people acted, political leaders acted, etc. And I find that kind of, in a sense, kind of radical, that the people of Jesus' day, that the leadership who knew the Bible very, very well and knew Jeremiah 26, that there wasn't a thought of like, maybe we're doing the same thing that people did to Jeremiah. Like, I wonder if it ever crossed their mind that what they did to Jesus is what they did to the other prophets. And Jesus told them that, right? Which of the prophets did you not kill? Did your ancestors not kill? Meaning, don't you see, you're just doing the same exact thing. Any messenger from God that comes, you want to kill. So it leads me to think that maybe the right religion is the one that we want to kill its messengers. Maybe that is one of the proofs, one of the ways that we see evidence of the true and living God. That when he does send messengers, we really don't like them. Because it's convicting. It goes against what we want to do, our desires, things like that. It's an interesting way to look at it. But I find it fascinating that in the Bible, the messengers of the Bible are not very liked by the populace. The populace actually kills them. And maybe that's what we do today too. Maybe that's how we are when it comes to truth. We fight against it. We wage war against it. We literally want to kill it. It's kind of a powerful idea, and one that shows that maybe my default as a human being is not a very good one. Maybe it's really to move away, and I have to fight to actually know the truth. I have to really consciously make an effort to get in to know what is true and what is not. And I think we know this as humans on many subjects, that if you really want to know something, you're going to have to delve into it. And maybe it's the same with God. If you really want to know who God is, then maybe you have to make really the effort to do so. Then Jeremiah spoke to the officials and the people in his own defense. The Lord sent me to prophesy against this temple and the city. And he said, the Lord gave me every word that I have spoken. But if you stop your sinning and begin to obey the Lord your God, he will change his mind about the disaster that he has announced against you. As for me, I am in your hands. Do with me as you think best. But if you kill me, rest assured that you will be killing an innocent man. Wow. It sounds so Jesus-like. It sounds very similar to Paul the Apostle in the book of Acts. It says the responsibility for such a deed will lie on you, on this city, and on every person living in it. For it is absolutely true that the Lord sent me to speak every word you have heard. Then the officials and the people said to the priests and prophets, this man does not deserve death, the death sentence. He has spoken to us in the name of the Lord our God. So some wisdom prevailed, and Jeremiah gets spared. And I love how Jeremiah just speaks boldly, and he speaks just what God told him to say. And I think that's powerful. That in our lives, sometimes we just have to stick to what God's told us to say. And we don't have to go beyond that. We don't even have to maybe try to explain everything. But it's just kind of maybe our words need to be few and not so many. And I find that fascinating. But I love the boldness of Jeremiah. I love how he just kind of, he just says it, even though he's in a really interesting predicament. There's a courage within Jeremiah forming. You don't see this so early on, but man, you find it here, where it really is coming out. And it says, then the officials said that, hey, he's spoken in the name of the Lord, he's not deserving of the death sentence. Then some of the wise old men stood and spoke to the people assembled there. They said, remember when Micah and Moresheth prophesied during the reign of King Hezekiah of Judah? He told the people of Judah, this is what the Lord of heaven's armies, Mount Zion will be plowed like an open field. Jerusalem will be reduced to ruins. A thicket will grow on its heights where the temple now stands. So this is not some new prophecy that Jeremiah shared. This is something that has been shared before to the people. But did King Hezekiah and the people kill him for saying this? No, they turned from their sins and worshiped the Lord. They begged him for mercy, and the Lord changed his mind about the terrible disaster he had pronounced against them. So we are about to do ourselves great harm. Man, this is great. A person goes, hey, does this sound familiar? Can we learn from history? Can we just look back a little bit and see maybe we're going in the wrong direction? Is there other countries that have tried what we've tried and ended up not doing so good? You know, there's a lot of things we can talk about as far as our country and where it's at. You know, where is the wise people? Where is the wisdom, in our country? Where does it lie? Is there a wise person that when they share, they make sense? And we go, man, yeah, that's right. Or are we just stuck in a lot of rhetoric, slogan throwing, stuff? It's kind of weird, right? We're trying to make sense of it all. And maybe that's why people like Jordan Peterson and people like that are very popular, because it's someone trying to articulate, if you will, our world and to have it make sense. And when it makes some sense, people, grab it, and it helps them in their mind, helps them feel like they're on a better foundation. And so that's a real gift, to be able to articulate, to have that wisdom to say, hey, this is what's happened in the past. This is what's happening today. And someone who has that kind of wisdom. A lot of the young people in college, bless them, right, man? I've been there, But, they're trying, but they're young. They've only been on the planet 20 years. Doesn't mean they don't know. But a lot of times they might not have, that that wisdom that is from the older generation that has been there, done that, has seen much more things, that's seen the destruction or the consequences of actions. And so we see that there's some wisdom, some wise people that stand up and share. Hopefully that's what we have in the church too, is people that are wise that could stand up and share that kind of wisdom. At this time, Uriah, son of Shemaiah, from Kiriath Jearim, was also prophesying for the Lord, and he predicted the same terrible disaster against the city and nation as Jeremiah did. When King Jehoiakim and the army of officers and officials heard what he was saying, the king sent someone to kill him, but Uriah heard about the plan and escaped in fear to Egypt. Then King Jehoiakim and Ethathan, son of Akbor, to Egypt, along with several other men to capture Uriah. They took him prisoner and brought him back to King Jehoiakim. The king then killed Uriah with the sword and had him buried in an unmarked grave. Nevertheless, Hiakim, son of Zephon, stood up for Jeremiah and persuaded the court not to turn him over to the mob to be killed. Okay, so we see that the kings don't necessarily listen to much wisdom, right? I mean, the story's told of another prophet who spoke in the similar way of Jeremiah and then had to flee to Egypt. And then, the king sends people to go get him and gets him and kills him and humiliates him, puts him in an unmarked grave, right? Shames his family, shames him by that. No honor in that at all, right? Just treating him horribly. And so we see Jeremiah is so far being saved. There's some men that have stood up and have tried to speak wisdom. But mobs, man, are very hard to fight because it's just a bunch of emotion. And when people get emotionally in a frenzy, there's not much you can do. I love what the New Testament says. Avoid a divisive person after the second admonition. Sometimes people that are divisive just are very emotional, right? Just causing divisions, causing, factions and friction, all that. And sometimes you can't do nothing when you're against that kind of emotional power. All we can do is just move away. Just walk away. We got to go to Egypt, so to speak. Have courage, but sometimes we can't just sit there, right? And we see Jeremiah, thank God he had some advocates on his side. And, it's good when we get some advocates on our side as well. People that are willing to say, with wisdom, right? Hey, this is right, this is wrong, this is how we know, and explain all that. So, very cool chapter, a personal chapter about Jeremiah, of course, and the dangers that he's going through in his life. Again, Jeremiah is bummed. He doesn't want to go through this. He's asking God why he's got to go through this in the book. He's wondering if God's around because God said that he was going to protect him, but he doesn't feel protected a lot of the times. He feels very vulnerable. And so, trusting God even when we're vulnerable. Moving out in courage, in a courageous way, even when we're vulnerable. That's difficult. A lot of times we want to be strong, come off as strong, hide whatever's the vulnerability, right? Because we don't want people to see it. That's certainly how our politicians are in the world, right? It's always coming off strong, it seems like. But it's beautiful when one comes off more vulnerable and we go, oh man, and they're still courageous, right? They step through that vulnerability and walk through it. And it really is an awesome moment. So maybe I can be that way for my children that are huge now, big adults, for my wife, where I'm not just leading in that kind of I'm strong and nothing can get into me, but I can lead and they can see courage in the midst of vulnerability and difficulty. And maybe that's how they grow too and how they learn. So very cool chapter. Love it. chapter 26 in the books. So, hey, Paula, Patty, thanks for joining me. Tina, thanks for coming on. I'm a little early, so I'm surprised you guys are there. But anyway, you guys take care. Okay, have a good weekend. We'll see you guys soon. Okay, bye-bye.